Kobe Bryant is the only person in NBA history, in my opinion, that competes even close to Curry's impact on the game. Alright, everybody, welcome back to another episode of NBA Now. It's your boy Dom, and we're going to get right into things here today. So, today, we're going to be talking about Steph Curry. He just broke the NBA three-point record, and today we're going to be talking about how, he became one of, if not, the greatest point guard of all time. And this is something that I, as a Curry fan for a long time, didn't want to say, but I think now looking at it, he is the greatest point guard of all time, and I'm going to make that case here. So first, before we get to the stats, before we get to the other point guards, before we get to any of that, what I want to do is I want to look at impact. Steph Curry is one of the probably 5 most impactful players to ever play the game of basketball, if not number 1. And he changed the game. He changed the perspective on the game. He didn't just change it in the NBA. He changed it in the minds and the thoughts of every person that has ever played basketball. And that's something not a lot of people can say. I think when you look at impactful players in the game of basketball, you look at Michael Jordan, right? Widely considered the GOAT. And he showed that, he was fearless, right? He would stop at nothing to win. And he brought basketball to the main stage because we've seen an ever-increasing popularity in basketball ever since its birth, right? But Michael Jordan's Chicago Bulls are, he led his team to, at that point, the best record in NBA history, won all 6 of his championships, was the embodiment of winning once he got into the later part of his career, once he got the right coach, once he got the right pieces around him, once he got the right second star, right? When you look maybe in a less winning impact, right? Maybe a less on-the-court impact, and you look at off-the-court impact, right? You look at a guy like Stephon Marbury, a guy that, he brought a shoe to people that anybody could get access to, right? He made it so that it didn't matter what you looked like, what color your skin was, how old, how young you were. It didn't matter. He gave every single person access to own an NBA player's shoe. He gave every kid out there the opportunity to feel like they were connected to the NBA, right? And that's more of an off-the-court thing. Now, he was good on the court, nowhere near Jordan, obviously, but his off-the-court impact to many, many communities was much more substantial than what he even did on the court, right? Then you have a crossover. You have Allen Iverson, a guy that took what dribblers before him had done, and really threw dribbling onto the scene, right? Nowadays, we see guys like Kyrie, Steph, Chris Paul, all sorts of guys across the league with these insane handles that would have never even been thought of to be a thing before Allen Iverson entered the league. And now there's guys like Isaiah Thomas and other guys prior to him that were good dribblers for their time, but but Allen Iverson instantly came into the league and he crossed over Jordan, and he changed how we looked at dribbling, right? It wasn't just a means to move the ball around. It was a means to change your entire game. And then obviously he showed that it didn't matter where you came from or what you stood for. You could be what you wanted to be if you worked for it, right? He was a guy that changed a lot of the culture in the league itself. And I think the only guy, in my opinion, that competes with Curry for impact is Kobe Bryant. Now, rest in peace to Kobe Bryant. But Kobe Bryant is the only person in NBA history, in my opinion, that competes even close to Curry's impact on the game. And that isn't because he went perfect in the finals like Jordan. That isn't because he brought dribbling onto the stage more than anyone else like Allen Iverson. That isn't because he had the cheap shoes for every single person to get to feel connected to the stars of the game. It's because every time that you've ever shot a piece of paper into the trash, or you've ever gone to the park and thrown up a shot that you never thought you would make, or that you thought was wild, or that you wanted to show off, who do you yell? Whose name do you yell? You yell Kobe Bryant. And that's the impact he left on the game. He was a clutch shot maker. He was a diehard NBA player, diehard basketball fan, right? Grew up in Italy and in Philadelphia, watching his dad play basketball. Went to the NBA straight out of high school, something that we've seen LeBron do as well. And I'm sure a lot of people will be angry he's not on my list, but that's a different video for a different day. And Kobe Bryant, he changed how we looked at it, right? We looked at a turnaround fade from Jordan as a clutch shot, but we looked at Kobe and we looked at it as the Mamba mentality. We looked at it as I will win. Under no circumstance will I let anyone else determine the outcome that I can have control of, right? And so every wild shot, every crazy dunk, every insane highlight, every championship he won furthered his legacy to this day. And his legacy will never end. It'll live on, right? Legends never die is a very common phrase, and he's a legend. But Curry's a legend in his own right. And so with no disrespect to Kobe, Curry's the only person competing with him for what he meant to the game, right? And the reason I say that is because when you look at the NBA, first off, and obviously we all know what he did to the three-pointer. The three-pointer was already in a trend of increasing fashion, right? We saw the San Antonio Spurs, we saw the Miami Heat continually start to use it more in Curry's earlier seasons. But once Curry found his health, once Curry's ankles were not constantly being injured, he revolutionized the entire game of basketball. You can't go to a court in a park and not see some 8-year-old kid chuck it up, and the only other name that would be yelled other than Kobe Bryant, other than a wild shot Kobe that you would yell, is if you are taking an insanely deep shot and you yell Curry, because you know that he was the only guy that could make it. This guy was a guy that pulled up from half court to win the game against the OKC Thunder and brought himself on the stage, crossed up Chris Paul, a guy that we looked at to be one of the best point guards of all time, and led his team to more wins than Michael Jordan ever did in a regular season. So when you look at Curry, not only did he speed up the revolution of the game of basketball and emphasize the three-pointer and bring along the analytics era of basketball, right? Nowadays, a layup and a dunk and a three are the most valuable shots, and the mid-range faded away with guys like Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan, the faces of the mid-range, as we could call it, right? And Curry by far became the face of the three-pointer. There were guys that could shoot before him. There was Ray Allen, there was Reggie Miller, but nobody could do it the way Curry could. And so that's how he changed the game, right? He made it, his impact on the game, forever lasting. I mean, the game will never even be thinkable to be the same. You're never going to look at a team and say, let me get a Tim Duncan and a David Robinson, and that's going to be my team to win a championship, right? He brought along the era of guards. Now, there were great guards coming into the league, but with his transformation of the perimeter shot, he allowed the league to be dominated by guards. We saw through Curry's earlier years, when he first became an MVP and everything like that, we saw the peaks of Russell Westbrook. We saw the peaks of John Wall. We saw we're seeing the peak of Damian Lillard, and a plethora of other guys throughout the league. We saw Chris Paul adapt to the game as well and continue to further his legacy. And so the era of guards surrounded Curry emphasized how much he changed the game, because prior to him it was get it in the post, it was big man stuff. Slowly it was working a ball movement, and there was small ball starting to be developed in places like Miami and stuff like that. But it wasn't until the Golden State Warriors grasped hold of the NBA that we saw a birth of a new style of the game. And that's just Curry's impact. Now, to look at why I think now he's the best point guard of all time is simple. When you look at Magic Johnson, right? Widely known as the best point guard of all time. Widely known as a top 5, a top 10 NBA player to ever, or a top 10, top 5 player to ever touch a basketball, to ever think of a basketball, whatever. He's widely known as that. He was closer to Ben Simmons. In today's age, he would play a power forward position, right? He would not play probably the point guard. And he is a point guard. Don't get me wrong. His passes were insane. That's why he got the name Magic Johnson. He created magic on the court for your eyes to watch. I wasn't around to watch him, but to even think of being in that time, to see a player like that doing the things that he was doing, running up the court, playing all 5 positions, he changed the game in his own right. He brought about the versatile wing, guard, playmaker, whatever it is, the LeBron mold, the Luka mold. Those are all the Ben Simmons mold. They're all molded from what Magic Johnson brought to the game. And his rivalry with Bird is almost unmatched throughout history for a single player versus player rivalry. The only other ones that you can really key in on is maybe Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell, guys that played on the same teams as Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. And that Celtics-Lakers rivalry, that's why it's so deeply ingrained into the NBA, is because probably the 2 greatest player rivalries of all time that were playing during the same era were on those 2 teams. And Magic Johnson came into the league and was a winner immediately. But something that we don't commonly say, when we look at Curry, we look at how he got Kevin Durant. But he'd already won a championship. Now, I think when you look back on it, it looks like really the Cavs and the Warriors should have swapped championships. If the Cavs were healthy, then I think they would have swapped championships there. And Golden State would have won 2016 and Cleveland would have won 2015. But he had won a championship before he ever got Kevin Durant. And Kevin Durant came along and made the team unstoppable. But we don't know if he wouldn't have won more. And he's a unanimous MVP, 2-time MVP, looking better than ever to this day. And we don't know how long he'll be in the league playing at the elite level that he's playing at. But Magic Johnson played for a long time too. Magic Johnson, he had his career stopped due to some stuff, but that we all know about. But he was a guy that came into the league and got to play with what at that point was either considered the GOAT or was becoming the GOAT in Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Kareem was a guy that has the most MVPs of all time. He's widely considered a top 3 NBA player to ever play the game. And Magic Johnson came into the league and that was his running mate. It wasn't like Magic had to go through the struggle to start his career and make it to the height that he could, that Curry did. Magic instantly was a winner, and that's something you have to look at there. Magic Johnson didn't have to go through the trials and tribulations that Curry did. But in arguably a more competitive era, in an era with LeBron James at his peak, Steph Curry was able to thrive and bring about a new way to play the game of basketball. So after him breaking the 3-point record tonight, I have finally decided that I'm going to call him the best point guard to ever play the game of basketball. He changed it in so many different ways. He's such a phenomenal playmaker in his own right. And at this point, his defense continues to get better. I mean, when you look at what you would criticize him for, it would be his defense. It would be he can't guard 1 through 4 or whatever, like a Magic Johnson could. He can't go and suit up as the center in the NBA Finals to win the Finals MVP, right? No, Steph Curry can't do that. But Steph Curry can take the other team and annihilate them on his own without making a single shot. And this is something commonly talked about, but it's gravity. It's something that no other player has even close to what Curry has. Now, when you look at shooters nowadays, right, typically in a lot of teams, you're going to have 2 shooters in the corners. And typically you have guys that stay with those shooters for most of the play. But there is no player to ever play the game that brought about what Curry has. Curry is constant, his off-ball movement, his ability to make it from anywhere, his ability to stop and pop, his ability to go off the dribble, his ability to go behind the screen, whatever which way to make a 3-pointer, to get to the basket, to cross you up, to make a pass, it doesn't matter. that you have to be on him. If you are a defender and you aren't engaged 100% of the time, he'll drop 50 on you like it's nothing, because all he has to do is pull up from 35 feet and he can drain it, right? And so I think when you look at Steph Curry, and to be honest, this video is all about Steph Curry. This video is to raise, if Steph Curry ever sees this video, this is to raise Steph Curry's ego, right? This is to praise what he's done for the game of basketball, which not everybody agrees with. Not everybody likes the three-point shot, but he found his calling in the game. He found what he could do. You know, he didn't go to a blue blood college. He went to Davidson, right? He didn't go to Duke or Kansas or North Carolina. He went to a small school. He was there for a couple years. He fought them into March Madness. He played out in March Madness. He was passed on by multiple times by teams like the Knicks and the Timberwolves that had multiple picks and took point guards behind or ahead of him. And he was drafted mid-lottery, and he struggled with injuries. But once he found the right coach, once he had the right teammates, once he found a way to change the game of basketball, he changed it forever. And I think Magic Johnson, we look in part as nostalgic, right? Because he didn't always have Kareem. He did it without Kareem. He made the finals without Kareem and everything. But he will never have the impact that Curry had, not only on the game on the court, I think, but on the game off the court, right? When you throw a pass, you never say, oh, that's Magic Johnson. And now maybe back then they did, and I don't know that. But that's something that was overachieved by others, whether it be a Chris Paul or a LeBron James or even a Steph Curry. Other players with crazy passes, a Nikola Jokic, have passed that name-calling right that you would say as just a normal basketball player. But nobody will ever pass what Curry's done. Nobody will come close to what Curry's done. And nobody will ever touch what Kobe Bryant did for the game as well. So I think that's why at the start of the video I really wanted to talk about who had the most impact, because impact matters. Not only does what on the court what you did, because it's similar. I think in today's age it's a bit more competitive where Curry had to win than where Magic had to win, because really it was only like the two teams for the majority of the 80s, and then you also had the Pistons in there, so it was like 2-3 teams that had a shot. But you know, I think just looking at the impact off the court and still what he was able to do and is still doing on the court is something that I really look at when I'm looking at Steph Curry now. And I'm really praising with Steph Curry because, yes, he's one of my favorite players of all time. I have his jersey hanging up in my closet right now. But he's also one of millions of other people's favorite players of all time, right? He's a guy that is just unreplicable in the way that he plays and how he carries himself and how he leads a team and how he can be unselfish enough that after he wins a championship and is a unanimous MVP to slide to the side and let a guy in Kevin Durant, another top player of all time, to come to his team and be the main guy is something that not many stars could do. And so this is kind of, I guess, just my video on Curry about why I think he became the best player to ever play the point guard position in NBA history. And if you guys did make it to the end, I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you guys think. I know this video is probably going to get a lot of hate. A lot of praise from Warriors fans, I assume, but a lot of hate from anybody else, and probably Russell Westbrook fans, to be honest, because that's a different conversation for a different day. But yeah, with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you guys drop a like and subscribe for more. And yeah, that's going to be it. So see y'all next time. Peace out, guys.